Welcome back, you people. This is Oni Zerg, also has streams. I haven't uploaded in a bit. I've been having hardware issues. I don't have a mic for my PC. So I use my phone to record, and then I do use my PC to do some editing if I need to. But hopefully I don't have any issues with this, and my mic was actually fixed. If not, I'm going to be really upset because this is something that I have been playing for a while. An old series. I wasn't too happy the first iteration. I tried redoing it and I didn't like it either. So the old Alien Deku is that series is pretty much dead, and it won't continue except in this iteration, because I have been waiting on doing a werewolf or something like a werewolf or a vampire series, like Halloween. This series will be what if Deku was a true alpha. Now, many of you may be thinking Teen Wolf, and I do take some inspiration from the Teen Wolf series, but not as far as, certain things. The term true alpha, as you will see, means something completely different in this series than what it would mean in the context of a Teen Wolf series. So, that being said, let's get into this with episode 0A, titled An Alien Out of Time. Our story, it begins in a different timeline. Matter of fact, almost like a completely different universe. A young Korean is experimenting with biotic tech. Basically, experimental tech that doesn't really exist, and you probably shouldn't be fucking with the fundamentals of reality kind of stuff. But hey, Koreans are, by this time, the events of the third game have arisen, but the pretty much been living under a rock. And it's not really a spoiler because the game literally has been out for, I think, 10 years now. At least the first game I know has definitely been out for at least 10 years, because the first game came back in the early 2000s. But it's been over 5 years. I know that for a fact that the third game has been out. I would have to look at the dates to give you an exact time frame, but it's not really a spoiler with something that's been out that long. So, that being said, back to the story. The tech that this young Korean is working on is, it starts to malfunction. And biotic energy starts to envelop the lab, and you can just hear outside of the lab screams can be heard. "Ego, get out of there now!" The young Korean yells back out, "No! If I do not stop their action, everyone on the moon will be killed!" At that, the biotic storm begins to get even bigger and bigger and bigger, and starts to truly envelop the lab. Everyone else makes it out of the facility and starts making their way to escape pod. Inko is thinking almost there as she fights against the energy, getting slight burns because of her armor is slowly but surely getting destroyed. It's getting burnt away because of the pure raw energy that's being expelled. So as she she gets there, and then as she does it, I want to like get the reaction to stop with the shutdown protocols. This causes an explosion to happen, and when the smoke clears and everyone hears the explosion and nothing truly happens, they from orbit do search and find that no outside energies. But the curious thing that's really concerning for a lot of them, and particularly a specific Korean who happens to be the elder sibling of the said of Inko. And yes, in this series, Inko is Korean, 100%. I use this art because there really isn't any mods or a lot of stuff that I can find about in-game captures of like maskless Koreans besides the photo of Talia. And this is supposed to be Talia, but I'm just using it. The persons who created this piece, you can see their tag in the bottom right hand corner. Do go support them. They do have good art. Like, go give them a follow. If you use DeviantArt, I don't really do. And I did look for mods that I could install and actually get screen grabs from in game, but I couldn't really find any mods. But I did find some art, and in my opinion, this is the best one. So do go to the people in the bottom right and give them a follow if you use DeviantArt. That being said, so they can't find any life signs. So as they get down, they literally can't find any remnants of biomass or any. But so they are saddened, and then the one particular is really upset at this because their younger sister is, for all intents and purposes, dead. At least to them, she's dead. So they begin to like rebuild, and they begin to like actually scrub the area of trace radiation that has caused to like actually make it safe for people without hazmat tech in. But as they're clearing it out, the particular Korean, who is really distraught at this, notices that there's trace tachyon particles. And they smile, and they think, she may return one day. She may be alive, but Mom and Dad are going to be upset about this. So, now we cut to the MHA universe. And I know that little explanation is used a lot, but when in the universe, in the Mass Effect universe, bionics deal with dark matter. So, combined with them experimenting with tachyon particles, with dark matter, and all kinds of stuff from shows like The Flash and other shows, when you screw with dark matter, some weird stuff can happen. So that's how I'm pulling a Quarian into the MHA, because I've done it before where there's a species that exists but nothing else, and I kind of want to meld more of the universes together. So we cut over to the MHA and universe. And in this universe, humans have developed differently. So Quarians in this universe could exist. The Reapers could exist. Other species could exist in the universe. In this universe, there is no mass relay in the area. So it was never discovered on Mars. They have sent probes and stuff. They can nothing like through the solar system. And so humans are going to evolve along a different path in this. The whole Reaper and core like alien species won't come into play until many years after Deku is long gone. And the human species will be a great deal more powerful than what they would be in the Mass Effect universe. So we cut to a night of a full moon. A man named Hisashi, he's infected with a biological curse that basically makes him a werewolf. Like, he's a werewolf. He was born like this. He is an alpha by blood. Like, he's a pack leader. And he does have, when he transforms, he can take a human wolf hybrid look, like a classic werewolf look, where he's bipedal and everything. But most werewolves can only do a wolf transformation. They can't do an in-between transformation. Though when they are transformed, they're like, if some of you know how big Akamaru is in Naruto, imagine a wolf about 2 times bigger than that. That's what they look like. A alpha, someone who is a pack lord, a pack leader, is about 1.5 times bigger than that. So they're about 2.5 times bigger than what Akamaru would be, which is pretty massive. And then when they can also take on an in-between state. Now, there are multiple ways to gain. Like I said, I'm taking inspiration from Teen Wolf, but I'm also pulling in lore from other things, kind of creating my own werewolf. So, like in the Teen Wolf, you can become an alpha by defeating a pack leader. And like most, you basically show your dominance, and you can attain their power. But if you're born, like if you're the child of an alpha, you can take an in-between state, but it's more bestial. Like you don't have mastery over the form. Like in this, Hisashi would be able to take a form anywhere in between. Like he can go from like 99, like he can be like 90% human, 10% wolf, and like any percentage in between. If you're born of someone like this, it's more of a 30-70 mix, where you have 30% human features, but you're mostly of a canine, like wolf appearance. You're more bestial than human in your transformation. And you can either take that form, or like under the effects of a full moon, you do a story. Like Hasashi, he's on a run. It's the night of a full moon, and he decided to, like, it's been a while. It's been a few years since he became an alpha, because his father had passed away and passed it down to his child. Now Hasashi, he's a pure-blooded werewolf. Now, with the advent of quirks, he is also able to breathe fire. And amongst like a werewolves and his pack, he's known as the Demon Wolf because when he's transformed, he still has access to his quirk and he can sort of engulf his head. He can sort of breathe out fire. Basically, if you've seen depictions of the Hellhound Cerberus, how like flames kind of emanate from his mouth and like they spread along. When Hasashi uses his quirk in his werewolf transformation, he looks like a demon wolf. So he gained the nickname the Demon Wolf of Japan. And every few, like every decade, decade is 10 years, yeah, every decade, like leaders of light packs do gather overseas in Europe, where this particular strain of human had come about. They do make like the leaders do make a travel back to decide on how the supernatural society should behave and go over some events that may have happened. So in this, Hisashi will eventually have to make a decision. So during this run, he stops and he catches a whiff of something. He's like, human blood? Like, he's thinking, human blood? But it doesn't smell entirely. It doesn't smell human, but it doesn't smell like an animal. This is weird. And he's thinking, is like, did someone make a kill of a quirked person? Or, like, what's going on? If hunters find out that a werewolf killed someone, my pack's going to be in danger. And he does get injured, but then he's thinking, it's like, did someone kill someone like us? Or, like, what's going on? The smell, it smells like burnt flesh. As he's getting closer and closer, he's really concerned because there should be no one out here in the woods aside from like the occasional wandering pack member that may have come out to the cabin to do a run on the full moon. But his pack kind of gives him room when he goes on his runs because they can't really keep up and it can get dangerous sometimes for them. Because Sasashi has a thing about using his quirk to make kills on like deer, and sometimes he even takes on like a bear. And a few times he has accidentally hurt a few of them. But because of their regeneration factor, after they de-transform, like the transformation and de-transformation regeneration factor, these injuries do kind of get healed when they de-transform. So a few of them just don't want to go through it, especially when he takes on like his full wolf form. He doesn't necessarily have the best control over his quirk when he does use it. So them knowing he's going to go on a full wolf transformation run, and many of you are like, what does he mean by run? Well, hold on 1 minute. Okay, sorry about the interruption. I had to actually look up the name of this series. So, if some of you have seen this series Bitten, this is what I mean by a run. Like, you basically go on, like, a run in your wolf form. And Hisashi's family owns a considerable amount of land. I'm also taking inspiration from that series and a few other, and just werewolf lore in general. for the series. So Hasashi is out at the cabin, like he's spending like the weekend there, and it happens to be a full moon, and he decided to go on a full bestial run. So they don't really get disturbed out there, but even still, in a society of quirks, they do keep their existence somewhat a secret, but even if someone's caught, they play it off as like their quirk. They're able to play it off as a quirk if someone catches them de-transforming and everything. People don't really think, I was like, oh my god, supernatural stuff, because supernatural is kind of commonplace in this society with the whole advent of quirks and everything. So as Sasashi gets closer and closer to the smell, he starts smelling burnt plant matter and weird, like the smell of the burnt flesh starts to seem even weirder and weirder. And when he gets to the clearing, it seems like a bomb had went off, because like a circular pattern in like basically a crater of a bunch of stuff, like basically burnt to a crisp. And as he looks down into the crater, he sees a weird looking naked woman that has these weird protrusions from like coming from like her face over the top of her hair, and her hair looks weird. And he's not thinking much. He's like, she has a pretty weird mutation quirk. Okay. So she has a pretty weird mutation quirk. So as he gets closer and closer to the body, all of a sudden the woman just exhales and goes and coughs a little bit, and kind of like the woman kind of curls up, and Sashi is surprised. He's like, she's alive. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So unlike other only alphas and children of alphas can transform, can de-transform at will, like under the of a full moon. No, alphas can only de-transform under the effects of the full moon, and innately most children of alphas or a pack lord, whatever term you want to use, they can control if they transform or not. So if they soak up lunar blood waves, let's use like a Dragon Ball term, if they absorb lunar radiation, like reflection of the sun's radiation from the moon, they can control if they transform or not. But if they transform, they can't de-transform. They basically can stave off the transformation for a good bit, or indefinitely, with the proper training. And even non-children in pack wards with enough training and and I mean years, like 20 plus years of actually training their bodies, they can do the same thing. So the younger years of werewolves, and in this, until they are in puberty, until they've like pretty much finished puberty, they won't until they get into puberty, they won't transform. Like basically they grow at a normal rate, because once they go through their first transformation, they have let's just say the first transformation isn't that good. But Ooh, yeah. Many of you voted for the right person because of Ingo. Ooh, yeah. So yeah, that poll that I made about which parent dies, it has far-reaching ramifications for the series. But that being said, a little bit of a side note, let's get back to the story. So Hasashi, he carefully, he de-transforms, and he does, because he does, a partial transformation, and he does have, a bag that he kind of straps on, in his partial transformation, so he can have clothes, because, yeah. So he was able to put on, a backpack that was designed for, well, their kind when they're transformed. And he, for those who can't really stash clothes in an area, but it's obviously, even though he has the cabin a couple miles away, he's he's one of those better safe than sorry kind of things, because if something happens where he needs to de-transform. Whoa, sorry about that. When he does de-transform, if he comes across someone where he needs to completely de-transform, instead of being naked, he likes having clothes at the ready. So he de-transforms. He puts shorts on, and then he takes the shirt on, and he kind of wraps her up in this, because in this, Sasashi is not a small dude. He's about 6'2", and he's about 250. He's a pretty big guy. So his shirt is pretty big. So he carefully wraps the woman up in a shirt, and he brings her back to his cabin, and he's thinking, should I call an ambulance? But she doesn't seem entire. She doesn't look her quirk is weird. Is she even human? He has a lot going on, because if this woman truly is a supernatural being that's not a quirk, then he could be breaking laws. So the weekend, he is able to he makes a trip to town, and the shopkeep, he notices that Hasashi is buying a lot of antiseptics and other things, and he asks you accidentally hurt someone again, right? Again, Hasashi? Yeah, and the guy, Hasashi looks at him and then kind of blinks, and then he looks around and he's like, oh, yeah, I forgot where it was. No, I just found someone, and I'm not sure if she's human. Hasashi says in a very low tone, to where only someone of their kind would be able to hear. And the guy's eyes just go wide, and he's he writes something down on a piece of paper and slides it to him, and he's like, give me a call later, Hasashi. Here, take the stuff, it's on the house. My kid, she has a somewhat of a healing quirk. She might be able to help. This is very concerning, because even though the shopkeeper isn't part of his bag, he is a supernatural being. He knows there's certain laws, and if someone was hunting humans, or if someone hunted a non-human, the hunters will get involved, and if they get involved, then bad things happen. Very bad things happen. It's entire packs being killed off kind of things happening. So this is really bad. So Hasashi says it won't be that bad. She just has some minor burns and she should be fine with some rest. So Hasashi, like, on his way back, he makes a phone call to his job, says that he's going to be off for, like, he needs a week off. He has a family emergency that he needs a little bit of time off. He has a family emergency, and they tell him, well, Hasashi, you haven't taken vacation in a while, so how about this? You take 14 days off, and we'll just say that you were using some saved up vacation time. Employer. And so Sashi takes the burn creams, the antiseptics, and the bandages back to the cabin. And he goes up and he treats the woman's wounds. He also did get, while he was there, he did get some clothes that seemed like would fit her. So after treating her wounds, he basically dresses her, and she, like, as she's like knocked out, she's speaking a weird language, like, not it's not something it's not a language he ever heard before. And being an alpha and a pack leader and going to these meetings, Hasashi does know a few languages. Like, he knows Russian, German, French, Italian, Japanese, because he is a Japanese national. Japanese is his first language. But he also knows English a little bit. He has more interactions with the other leaders. The American leaders don't really count. So his Spanish, his English isn't really that good. And the leader from England is kind of an asshole, so he kind of avoids him too. But the Americas leaders don't really come that often, so he doesn't really use English that much, though he can understand it. So she's like she rolls around, and every single time she hits like a burn, she kind of winces in pain, and she's speaking in a weird language, something that he's never heard before. So after about a week of Hasashi kind of nursing her and kind of basically force feeding her like every day, kind of he transforms like two of like his thumb and his index finger into like wolf claws, and kind of sanitizes his claws, and kind of like basically it turns the food that he prepares into mush, and he's not really sure what to do. Like, he's like, I don't know like what their quirk is, but hopefully this is doing any harm. So he's able to basically give her some nutrients. Like, she kind of spits out most of it. And after about a week, Hisashi goes to like change her bandages one day, and she opens her eyes and she looks at this man, and she kind of jumps a little bit and speaks like her language. And Hisashi kind of looks at her and gives her a curious look, and then she looks around, and then she's speaking in the Korean language, like saying words. And one word that Hasashi keeps hearing over and over again is "unko," and he points a finger at her and says, "Inko, Inko," and Inko kind of like nods, and then Hasashi like points to himself and says, "Hisashi," And a Korean, like, is like, huh? Like, because Hasashi goes, I am Hasashi in Japanese. And then he says it in French, like, I am Hasashi in French. And then she says it in Russian, and the Korean, like, Inko's just kind of looking at him, and then she points at him and says, Hasashi? And Hasashi kind of nods his head, yes. And then Hasashi begins to talk in like different languages, trying to figure out a way to communicate with this person because they obviously don't speak Japanese, they don't speak Russian, they don't speak German, they don't speak French, they don't speak Spanish. And then he says a few words in English, and he just sees like the eyes on this person go wide. They're like, and Ianka goes, I like me am Inko. And Hasashi goes, like, is like, says in his like English, it's not perfect. I would say he can carry on a conversation in English if he has to. His English is way better than his Spanish and his Spanish and oh god, one more. His English, sorry about that English, but his English is better than his Spanish and Portuguese. And he says, "Who? What is your work?" And Inko, because Inko, when she speaks to humans, like they do have like universal translators that translate for them. And she does know English, or what is more commonly known in the Mass Effect universe, common human. So she says, I work. What is quirk? And then Hasashi asks, can you read English? He asks her, and Inko kind of nods yes, because all the language that she saw of humans that's written is in English. And also Mandarin, but she can't speak Mandarin. She can read it, but she can't really speak it. So Hasashi writes down in English, is like, who are you and where do you come from? And, like, who are you and what is your quirk? A quirk is a supernatural power. He's thinking, he's like, what? Planet? What does she mean by planet? And he goes, well, we're obviously on Earth. What do you mean by planet? And Inko then, like, explains that she looks at him and she's like, wait, she has an inquisitive look on her face, and then she writes down in English, do you know what a Quarian is? With their perplexed look, looking at Hasashi, and Hasashi goes, no. And Inko's eyes just kind of go wide, and she kind of does like the universal thinking sign, like putting like your thumb and like the knuckle of your index finger to your chin, and she's looking up, and she goes to stand in. Hasashi like says, and he's rest, you were hurt, as pointing to like her neck and like part of her arm, and Inko looks down, and she's like, she points to it. You did, like, kind of pointing to the bandages, and Hasashi, like, nods yes, and then Inko basically starts to, like, write down, well, what year is this? She kind of says it as it, and Hisashi, like, says the year, and then Inko's eye, like, she kind of looks down, and she seems saddened. And Hisashi asks in English a little bit, and then Inko says in perfect English now, says, speak Japanese. Or speak your native, or not yet, she would say, speak your native tongue. I am smarter than humans. And Hisashi's eyes just go wide because what he had suspected had just been confirmed. This person sitting in front of him is not human, and he's thinking, like, whew, thank God I didn't take her to the hospital, because that would have been real bad. So then Hisashi asks, is Korean supernatural being? And Inko shakes her head, no. Korean is alien species. And Hisashi kind of jumps back a bit, and he's like, wait, you mean to tell me you're not from this planet? Inko nods her head, and then she says, I don't think I'm in my timeline? Universe? Weird. Humans should be in the stars by this point. And so, over the next week, Hisashi slowly begins to realize this person's really smart. She begins to speak better and better English, and she even starts to pick up some Japanese, as slowly he learns that her species is called Korean, and they're not from this planet, and for a while they lived on what is called a migrant fleet, and then later they were able to return to their homeworld, and she was involved in an experiment. And she doesn't have her tech with her, otherwise communication would have been a lot easier. So this 2 weeks, Sashi is in, like, towards the end of it, ask her, is like, does quarks exist in your universe? And Inko kind of looks at him, and then she says in broken English and Japanese, and a few words in her own tongue that just don't translate. She says, well, works, as you say, don't exist, but we do have something that's universal to all species called biotics. And she explains habits, and Sasha's like, that's interesting. So over the next, he asks her if she wants to come, if she has anywhere to stay, and like shakes her head no. And so Hasashi ponders, and he asks her, like, do you want to stay at my place? I have plenty of room in the mansion, but there's something you should know. Sashi kind of breathes fire, and Inko's eyes go wide, and she's like, "Whoa!" And then Hasashi, he's thinking, he's like, "Wait, she's not human, so that law doesn't apply." So then he begins to transform into his in between state, and Nico just goes, like with their eyes just wide, and she asks, like, Hasashi's like, "What is this?" And then Hasashi kind of de-transforms and kind of grabs his like pants, and says, "Well, I'm not human entirely either. The fire breathing, that is my quirk. It's about, like I said, it's what most of the population has. So then the transformation, is it a quirk too?" Because Quarians by nature are very inquisitive and very wanting to learn things. Like, they want to know more and more stuff to kind of bring it back to their thing. Now Rannoch, but before it was the migrant fleet. So she's very impressed, and then Hasashi like kind of looks down, and he looks up to her, and he's like, "Well, the transformation, it's not a quirk per se. It is a supernatural power." And then she says in English, "Kind of sounds like the old legends of werewolves that the humans have." And the Sashi's eyes just go, "Wait, what? You know what a werewolf is?" He says it in Japanese, and she replies in broken Japanese and English. It's like, "Yeah, humans archives mention there's like bunches of books, and well, it's thought that they are just legends, really, in the human species. Something before they took to the stars." And Sashi's, he's a little creeped out. He did freak out that this person in front of him is an alien, but to him, she's kinda hot. Because Hasashi does see, because people with mutation quirks sometimes do look weird, but Inko, she's cute, and she's very interesting. She's picked up English really well, and her Japanese, like, at least speaking it, isn't that bad. So she's like, "Well, I don't have anywhere, and I have to build stuff from the ground up, and from what you tell, the tech level of this planet is very low. I may be able to build communicative device, but you guys don't have blaster." She kind of like goes over. So she agrees. She basically goes back to the mansion with Hasashi, and as she's walking in, like, a wolf kind of like jumps out and starts growling at her, and Hasashi just kind of transforms one of his hands, and just menacingly stares at this wolf, and it kind of yelps and runs away. And Inko kind of looks at it and it's like, "Werewolf?" Kind of like in English, is kind of like tilting her head, and Sashi nods. So as they get in, Sashi is kind of accosted by another woman who looks a little bit like him. She kind of like jumps up on him and says, "Baba, who's this? We have a visitor. Who's the visitor?" And Hisashi, like, pats his sister on the head, and he's like, "This is Inko. Says, there's some things I need to discuss. Can you go get everyone?" And she says, "Yeah, they were just out back finishing up the run from, like, last night. Because this is in the morning." And she says, "How was the..." Looking at Inko, and he just says, "Just go get everyone," says. "She's fine. There's some things we need to discuss." So, the elders of the pack are gathered, and Sasha's sister comes into the into the conference room type area, and it's more like the dining room. And they're like, Hasashi kind of, because he was carrying something. He was carrying like a cooler. He basically sets the cooler down, opens it, and then starts putting food out on the table. And Ingo is just kind of looking at him like, huh? And then as they come in, like a few, like they begin to like grab food, and Hisashi kind of like howls a little bit, and they kind of stop. And then like a few, the elders like, "What is that doing here? That's not what I thought. Why is she here, Hisashi?" And Hisashi just like kind of growls at them and is like, "She's not human." And like all their eyes just go, huh? If you were smart, you would actually sniff her out first before even coming into this room. And like, so like Sasha's just like, "Yeah, you guys are stupid." Like the moment I could like she even got near the grounds, I could tell like Big Bro was like, brother was like, brought someone here that wasn't human. "So, what is she, brother?" And Asashi just kind of looks at Inko and like says in English, "Do you want to explain it, or do you want me to translate? Because none of these besides, well, looking at his sister, knows English." And Inko says, "No, I'm fine. If I will ask for help if I need it." And Asashi's sister says, "Wait, you're from America?" And Inko like kind of looks at her. It's like, "No, I'm not human. I'm not even Earthling. Best word to describe it." And she says that in Japanese, and everyone in the room is a little taken aback by this. And they're like, "Hasashi, explain." And so he explains to them Inko's plight. And a few from like, "She can't stay here. She'll be a threat to our kind. And she should be killed. No one outside." And then she, like, Inko look like kind of like has a fear look, and she's like, she kind of blurts out, and it's like, "Well, where I come from, it's known that werewolves existed in the past. They were thought to be just legends." And a few of them are a little concerned about this, and they don't know what to think about this. So Hasashi then, so they spent like several years go by, and I would say Hasashi's fairly young. He's about 18. He's about 18 when this happens. Like no, he's 19. He had recently become alpha before this, so a lot of the elders still kind of butt heads with him because his parents were involved in a car wreck, so he doesn't have like but before like they died, his father did pass on, say that he names his son as his successor. So all of this, he will have to deal with this, and he has been groomed because he has gone with his parents like occasionally to the gathering. So years pass, and Inko is amazed by this world, and She's even had conversations with Hisashi, and Hisashi has, with difficulty, because hasn't learned a few words in Inko's native language, and they have talked, and they kind of fell for each other. And she's like, Inko says one day she never thought she would fall for a human, and this kind of catches Masashi aback, and then he like kind of smiles, and he's like, I didn't know you liked me. And Inko kind of blushes a little bit, and they kind of have like a moment. And another year passes, and Inko finally like tells Sasashi she doesn't think she's ever going to be able to get home, at least with access to certain materials that are on this planet. She can't make the tech that she needs to get home. And she has, like, a lot of the pack has come around to her being there, because she has been able to make certain devices to kind of help, like, a few of them that can't really control themselves to gain more control over themselves in the transformation. And Hisashi's sister is really gotten close, and like they have become good friends. Hisashi's sister is amazed that this person in front of them is an alien and not of Earth. And Hisashi has said that this is kind of like, we shouldn't spread this. This could cause panic, and it could potentially lead to like our kind's laws being broken. So after like I said, after another year, they have like officially became a couple. A few of the path leaders are upset about this because like mixing bloodlines, even though she's not human, and they're all put by this, the whole purity thing. Hisashi finally then says, well then, if you have an issue with it, I name my sister a successor. And he basically walks over to his sister and like puts his hand on top of her head and digs his claws a little bit into like her head. And after a while, her eyes begin to glow red, and everyone's like, you would give up that power just to be with this alien? And this is when Hisashi like swipes his hand, and before he can, his sister catches it. And then she says, that's no longer your job, brother. I won't unlike these fools. I like Inko. And what you just said goes against pack law. And his sister just basically walks over to the guy who said it, and the guy is getting scared because she begins to transform into the hybrid form, and she basically grabs the guy and just crushes his throat. Inko's a little mortified about this and scared, and then Hisashi's sister turns around, like wiping off the blood, and then says, Inko, you shouldn't live in this world, brother. You and her should move to the city. I will take care of things here, and you have my word. Our pack won't interfere with your life. If they do, the sentence is death. And all the other elders of the pack are just looking at her like, yeah, yep, we get it. No interfering with their life. Leave them alone. They're off limits. We don't want to die. Because they literally just saw her execute someone for breaking law. And So, with that, you beautiful souls, this is going to be the end of part 0 in Alien Out of Time, the first episode of the new series. What if Deku was a true alpha? That being said, I still do have to finish up the script for part B, which will actually cover Izuku. I wanted to spend this like part 0B actually building up the relationship and kind of explaining the lore behind my version of a werewolf. This is going to be playing out more and more. And Inko really has fallen for a human, albeit not really a human, but and vice versa. So they will be moving to the city to really start a life and get away from like pack politics and everything. And so that being said, like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and also do go follow this person down below. Part 0B will be out later tonight, and then episode 1, which is the official, like the actual start of the series, which will start going over the events of, well, not early, because yeah, part 2 or 3 will be where we actually catch up with canon of this series with episode 1 of canon series. So that being said, like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think down below. And the winner, winner or loser, depending on how you look at it, Hasashi is going to be the one that dies. And that will play a role in part 1. Maybe towards the end of part 0B. Like I said, I will finish up the script and get 0B out later tonight. I will see you beautiful souls in the next video.